All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here and trying to envisage what some of the problems of tomorrow will be. Situations in the world today are getting increasingly complicated. They're getting more and more complicated. We have seen how geopolitical events last year in the US, the UK, and Europe have affected economies, which have affected businesses. Now, of course, this of course has affected a lot more about the way we work, the way we operate. And it's funny because we have our own challenges as it is. We have infrastructural challenges, we have climate change challenges, we have technological challenges. We're talking about disruption where the machines are taking over. So how do we prepare the next generation to cope with job losses? How do we prepare the next generation to be able to adapt to these changes? To help me dissect those problems, I'm joined by Hiro from Yamaha, I'm joined by Leon from Fuji Xerox, Steven from GoDaddy, and of course we have Eric from KodakIT. So thank you all so much. I want to start with innovation, and we are talking about innovation and disruption. But innovation for me is not just the fancy technological products that we're developing, it's also about innovating work cultures, innovating thought processes. And you guys coming from established companies and legacy companies are a good example of that because it's a perform and perish world. And the fact that you've innovated your work cultures, how have you not just stayed ahead of the curve but also thrived? So I just want to go around, starting with you, Hiro, and just get your perspective on innovation within the company.
Sure. As you may know, the Yamaha Motors, today's business, motorcycle, marine products, all those related engine technologies. And also that we are very sticking on the product sales. But when we are looking at the future of the society in the market, most of people is a digital native, and they just want to use their product and service and on demand, right? How we can transform ourselves to be the great company, excellent company in that kind of situation is a big question. And then, so I'm doing the corporate venturing in the Silicon Valley, doing the investment, also the open innovation, collaborating with startups or other corporations to see the future opportunities. But the most important thing is not came from the sense of crisis. How we can be more aggressive to take the opportunities to make the world colorful and better, healthier, happier. That kind of motivation drive us to figure out what is the future of Yamaha. So that kind of mentality is the most important thing, even the established legacy companies. That's why catchphrase I used in my team is how we can make dinosaur dancing, right? Dinosaur can dance again, maybe.
Right. Well, Leon, of course, you were talking about, we're 50-year history about how innovating, and of course, there's been a lot of innovation across in the Xerox and the printing industry as well. So, what's your story of innovation to stay ahead and constantly be a trendsetter?
So actually, from a Xerox point of view, obviously you know us for the traditional business, that 50-year legacy, but we're constantly reinventing ourselves, but we do that in very different ways now. So rather than just relying on technology and engineering, actually we're looking at culturally reinventing ourselves. So we distribute our innovation around the globe because one size doesn't fit all anymore. We try to attract that new talent, the people that have pushed the boundaries. And then we look deeply at why the kid in his bedroom can be a billionaire tomorrow. And that's because he does it without fear and without risk. So how do you create that culture to push the boundaries and really drive something new? So all of that we've tried to create. And from that you stimulate new ideas. But recognizing our focus is on human need, not placing technology. So you go from an engineering company inventing a great widget to something that's actually derived for fulfilling a human need. And then you come up and invent great products. And we've been doing that now continually for a fair few years, working with other business partners and collaborating with governments and universities. So you get a kind of melting pot of great ideas, and then you've just got to commercialize and execute. So not easy, but you have to do lots of things all at once.
Well, Stephen, as a digital-first company as well, you're all about innovation because innovation is a very digital-led thing. So what's your internal mantra for innovation?
Yeah, so we think about innovation as starting with the customer. So how can we take what we're hearing out from hundreds of millions of small businesses down to a small set that we work with every day through our customer care team, through our product management team, and then enable fast iteration. So I think about innovation as no longer being between big companies and small companies, but between fast companies and slow companies. And so the innovation that I think about is how do you get exposed to new ideas that customers can react to, and then how do you respond to that? And you get a flywheel turning. And so it's very much for GoDaddy around customer focus, and then bring those ideas back to the customers to get feedback, and then continuously repeat. And you have to have the courage to say, you know what, the customer is telling us this product isn't right, and either we're going to make it better or we're going to stop. And sometimes we don't have the right ideas. We have to go find a partner, either truly a partner or sometimes an acquisition target. And those ideas can come now from anywhere in the world.
Eric, of course, you spoke about the startup culture collaborating with major established legacy company. So as far as innovation is concerned, you're seeing traditional companies that are rebranding or rechanging the whole entire model. So as far as your story is concerned, where you're seeing a startup merge with an existing legacy company, that also has rebranded a lot of the workflows, a lot of the way you operate as well.
Yeah, first I hope you understand better the questions than I do because we can hardly hear you, so I'll try to answer.
Yeah.
The challenge we had at Kodak, so I'm part of Kodak, but I'm also the CEO of a new organization called KodakIT, part of the Kodak group. The challenge we had at Kodak, which is a more than 100 years old company, was to innovate in a very different world than where the world we used to operate before. So what we looked at is what are the core assets that the company has? What was the strength of the company as Kodak? And obviously, Kodak is well known in the world of photography, photographers, and images. A very famous and reliable brand. And obviously, people having a lot of memories around the Kodak brand. So what we did is we took these assets and we decided to apply these assets in the new economy, and that's why we launched KodakIT, which is a platform that connects photographers around the world to businesses who have obviously a lot of needs these days for new photographies.
Right. Of course, right now we are not just an economy that's becoming digital. It is a digital economy. It's a digital-first economy. We've seen that with marketing rebranded, pun intended, to digital marketing, or finance leveraging of fintech, and accountancy and legal and medicine all becoming going towards the AI and machine learning thing. So in a digital-first economy, Stephen and Leon, how would you sort of look at businesses should operate? Or do they think digital-first completely, and that's the strategy to go forward in order to thrive?
So from a digital-first perspective, absolutely, the world communicates in a digital perspective. But beneath that, you've got to look deeper as to why. So if you don't know why you're going digital first, then actually you're going to end up failing. You're just going to have a digital product that maybe misses the mark. So if we're looking at the changing dynamics of the evolution of work and what businesses actually mean, you've still got to have that fundamental understanding of what you're about and what you're trying to achieve before you rush into technology. Technology is still just an enabler for a digital first and a digital economy. You've still got to have a product that you're trying to deliver in a way that meets the need of people. So if you're building that organization from scratch, obviously you've got to think about what's going to disrupt you, because the moment you launch, you're already out of date. So you've got to be always thinking one step ahead in the digital economy. You may think you've got leadership, and the next day you haven't. So you're constantly in that innovation cycle. And if you're not thinking like that, you're thinking in traditional kind of static, I've got a world-leading product or offer, then actually you are going to fail. So digital economy is very challenging. It's very diverse. It's different by country. It's different by culture. And having one size that fits all is actually very, very hard to find. But constantly think about the next if you're going to venture into that digital economy from my point of view.
Yeah, I was going to build on that by saying that in the digital economy, you have existing behaviors that have moved to digital, and then you have brand new behaviors. And you have to figure out which of those two models you're operating in. When I think about the small businesses that we serve at GoDaddy, there's always been word of mouth. There's always been the ability to market locally, but much of that has now moved to a digital world where I'm in my WhatsApp application, I'm in my Facebook app, I'm on Instagram, and I'm sharing. Now I would have shared face-to-face, but now I can dramatically expand the number of people that I can touch. Okay, that's an existing behavior, but we have to teach people how to use the new capability. Then you think about new models that did not exist before at all in the digital space. So you might think about the concept of creating electronic messages. Okay, again, in the past, there was no way to get a message instantly across the world. So while communication is old, the new models you can build on top of a truly revolutionary digital service are monumental. And so What I think about is how do you equip the business owners, whether they're a small business or a large business, to think through, are we taking an existing behavior and moving it to be more efficient with the digital world, or are we creating a whole new class of behaviors? And it's really important to think about this too. The second one, of creating new classes of behaviors, is very challenging. If you can watch an existing customer and make it more efficient, that's a little bit easier of a problem to start with and solve.
Right. Well, Eric, of course, when you talk about digital, it's always about big data, IoT, and making sense of this. So how do businesses, or maybe even the small startups, make sense of all this? Because you've been a very good example of understanding this and leveraging on these new technologies to scale up. So how do, this new guys entering the market make sense of all these terminologies? Where do they even begin?
So for us, maybe I should explain a little bit what we do and how big data comes in. So as I mentioned, KodakIT is a network of photographers around the world. We have about 5,000 photographers in 92 cities and 37 countries. And if you're, let's say, an online travel agent and you need a lot of photography for all the properties around the world, what we can do is dispatch photographers to take pictures of these properties. What we do with big data is, as you can imagine, we are processing millions of photos from our customers. And the way people are looking at photography today and the data you can extract from photography is completely changing the way people are going to work with their customers. So we're talking about customers' experience. Just imagine that before, when you were doing a review on a hotel you stay into, you were just basically writing a review. It was a text or feedback. What we do with photography, we have the opportunity to actually ask the customers to review the bed, the view, the room itself, or very simple details around the photo. And that gives a much better granular feedback to the clients, to the customers, and a much better experience, obviously, to the people who stayed into that room. So we are using all this big data to actually provide better feedback to our customers and to their customers.
Right. Well, Hiro, we talked about digital. The prophecy is the machines are coming. They're coming. They're already here. They're taking over everything. As we talk about robots and this impending robotic revolution and AI and machine learning, there will eventually be job losses. How would we convince people who are worried about what it means for industry disruption that there will be better jobs coming? Because we can't have an industrial revolution kind of outlook where go and smash the machines, because that's not going to work. The typewriter will be replaced by the keyboard. So how do we look at AI and this robot revolution as a force for good?
Actually, one of the big topics in the Silicon Valley as well. When we have a lot of AI-driven services and solutions, also a lot of the robot can work for most of the industries, then what is our job, right? That's a big question. But look back to when we got the first computer on my hand, then we felt most of the job will be replaced by computer. But today, we could see that a lot of more opportunities in front of us. We can do more things in the same period of time, and then to make the world better and healthier, happier, and then we can enjoy time and space more effectively. So I personally not worry about the job losses. We can create new jobs and new roles for the future. But so I'm a software engineer, 20 years working for the factory automation and also robotics. Yeah, that kind of questions always came up from the laborers and the factory managers. But I never see real job losses that critically happen in that situation. We can create jobs.
Right. Well, of course, Leon, we're putting a lot of trust in these machines or the people who make them, because they're recommending our medicines as AI medical doctors. They're flying our cars, flying our planes for us, and they're telling us all sort of things how we should live our lives. What sort of trust and safety mechanisms can we do? Because anything which sort of, with great power comes great responsibility, to quote one of Hollywood's most loved lines. So what's the responsibility here?
So that is a very complex and challenging question. But actually, before I worry about machines taking over and becoming autonomous and making decisions of their own, I actually worry about bad humans. Because ultimately humans are in control of those machines and will be for a fair period of time. And there'll always be someone that wants to use something for a competitive advantage or in a way that it wasn't truly designed to do, or to do something that maybe not so ethical. So I'd worry about how do we control the humans that are controlling the machines. So what safeguards do we have in place around that? And that is obviously process security, technology, all of those things. So before we do the leap of faith to the matrix running everything, let's look at what's actually going to happen next, which is a series of automation and robotics and AI converging to perform tasks that we used to do ourselves. But ultimately, we're still going to end instructing or managing those tasks in some way, shape, or form. So that's where I'd be focusing now. And then the safeguards behind that are all about who are we hiring, how are we hiring them, how are we monitoring them, how are we checking them, what are the balances in place. Now, you might want a machine to check that, but ultimately, someone's got to watch someone. So that's where I'd be worrying for the next 5, 10 years. And then after that, I'll worry about the matrix.
Do you think that can we have the AI to validate that person is the right person?
Yeah, you end up in this kind of loop, yeah?
Okay.
You're using machine learning to understand my behavior and then spot something that's out of the norm.
Oh, we will be observed anytime?
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, I want to get your perspective on, the next sort of digital jobs, because back when, we were in school and college, a lot of these jobs didn't exist, like search engine optimizer, social media consultant. I mean, the look on parents' face 15 years ago, you said you want to work for a social networking company that pressed like on photographs, they'd probably be aghast. But a lot of these jobs are being created, and with AI, you're going to see maybe drone engineers or, AI designers. So how do we, what sort of jobs do you see created, and how do you prepare the next generation to understand and be ready for jobs that are not yet in the market?
Yeah. So a few thoughts, and building on something Hiro said related to this is, long term, you don't know where this is going to land, but you can feel confident that there'll be new opportunities created. The question is, how do we get from here to there? And I think there's personal responsibility is one of those core components of how do we ensure for people that want to learn, the people that want to stay with the changes that are occurring around them, can we get them to either specific people that can be a mentor to that individual? Can we get them into classes? And again, I think we have the infrastructure now in a massively online way to use people like Udacity or Udemy to go out and teach skills, and anyone with the phone now can reprogram themselves. So I think when I look at what the gap is for people from what jobs they have today to what jobs are going to be needed in the future, I can't predict what they're going to be, but I can say that if you're willing to invest in the new skills and we'll be able to create an infrastructure and tap into that infrastructure, we'll be better off than if we won't. One example would be when I think about what robots are coming down the road today, and a specific, very inexpensive example would be the Arduino board. So when I think about new skills that could be used, the Arduino board has a tremendous opportunity to be both inexpensive, it has an opportunity to be used locally to solve a problem that I, as a small business owner, might see that no one else sees, and the ability to program that is relatively easy. So with a small amount of capital, a local problem, and some creativity and entrepreneurship, I can now take what was a disruptive technology and use it to create a job for myself. And I think that is where we will see, I hope, the most innovation and the most opportunity to create jobs. It's not at the big business scale, but small businesses seeing opportunities and taking advantage of programmable robots and programmable AI.
Well, Eric, just touching on small
just to add to that, one thing as a startup, we don't necessarily know which skill sets we're going to need 6 months or a year from now, because the business is moving extremely fast and growing fast. Two things important. One is what we try to do is to onboard actually young people, new people into the company, and so they can learn as we learn as well what we're going to do moving forward. The second thing that I think is important is the partnership between the universities and the startups like us. So we have already done quite a few partnerships when we onboard some of these students, and they actually teach us a lot of things, but we also teach them how we're going to move forward and start building these relationships. So I think a private-public sector partnership is extremely important for growth.
Yeah, the compact, you might say that if you're at a small firm or a big firm, a compact between the employer and the employee is, I will find both the time and get you in front of the resources you need to stay current. Because I think we do have a responsibility on the private sector to keep our workforce up to date. We don't want to be in the position where we are putting the shareholder in a position ahead of the employee or the customers. You need to make sure your employees are staying with you. They are the lifeblood of the firm. If your employees are engaged, they will innovate on your behalf. They will then solve problems that you couldn't have learned yourself. The customers will be happy, and then you'll be able to create a business that grows over time. And so I think there's a symbiotic opportunity to say we have a responsibility to work with our employees to keep them up to date.
I just want to throw this out there because you've spoken about small businesses and startups, because startups obviously have a very futuristic trend, and while the entrepreneurial and startup culture is a wow culture, it's not just about starting up, it's about scaling up. And with all these new technologies coming about and with bigger companies having the resources to be able to leverage on these, how can startups be able to leverage on these new technologies and scale up successfully? Because it's about the long-term game, not just having a startup and lasting 2 years and then fizzling out. So I just want to put it out there. How do we scale up from this? Because that's about the future as well.
Yeah, so I'll take a crack at this. We work with millions of small businesses around the world. GoDaddy has 17 million customers globally, most of whom are very small businesses. And when you look at the data, it's not a pyramid of businesses, like there's a same number of small and then medium and large. It's like a thumbtack. So you have 90% of businesses around the world have fewer than 10 employees. Very few employees are actually even employed by the Fortune 500. It's about 20 million employees worldwide out of 3 billion people that are in the workforce. So I think the idea of scaling up for me is, how can I as an entrepreneur, whether I'm venture funded or not, do the most with the least amount of capital? So what can I use from a mobile phone perspective, my data that's shareable, to create services and or products that are unique? The challenge becomes one of how do you market beyond your local environment? And that's where most small businesses actually wind up capping out, is that the capital required, the infrastructure required to go global is massive. That hasn't changed. Even in the digital economy, that still hasn't changed. So when I think about technology and scaling up, I think you have the opportunity to scale to a point where you're self-sufficient, you can stay up with the changes in your customers' expectations, and not every business is going to become a IPO or a global 1,000. So I think about scaling up a little bit differently, because we need to help create conditions that everybody can become an entrepreneur, and that actually creates the jobs. It's not so much one business becoming gigantic and hiring lots of people. Google only has 60,000 employees. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the 3 billion people that need jobs.
Right, Hiro, I mean, you obviously are familiar with the Asian startup scene, and you're based now in Silicon Valley. Of course, Silicon Valley sort of is the trend driver as far as startups are concerned. Do you sometimes feel at times we in Asia we're trying to ape what Silicon Valley's success story is, and that may not be the best model to follow in Asia with different problems, and as a result of which sometimes a lot of Me-Too products or the startups don't scale successfully, and that itself impacts a lot of the future growth?
Yeah, definitely there are some difference between the Silicon Valley and the other kind of area, including the Tel Aviv, in the Berlin, and of course in the Singapore. And back to the latest trend in the Silicon Valley is robotics, automation, and autonomous driving, IoT, all those something combination between the software and the hardware, right? Most of the startups working for the drones and robotics and automation are struggling to get their mass production phase, right? The hardware manufacturing is not so easy for them to proceed. And that situation will be great for having the Asian or the power as a kind of supplement for them, because they just dive into the Shenzhen to do some manufacturing. But in case of their product is very cutting edge and very new product, the manufacturing itself is not so easy, right? They can do 1 maybe to 10 units of the prototype to show the investors to get some money. That's fine. But after that, they need to manufacture thousands, 10,000 units of the product. It's a totally different logic. In that case, like even the established corporation like Yamaha, Honda, Toyota, can help them to scale more safely and effectively. That's why recently we have so many opportunities to work together with a startup company in terms of the collaboration and open innovation, especially for the hardware sector.
Before I come to you, Eric, I just want to get Leon, because Hiro touched on manufacturing, and manufacturing, of course, is one of the core aspects of your business as well. And manufacturing, of course, is a very traditional industry that's seen changes from the Industrial Revolution, now with AI and all these tools coming in. What does the industry look like? Because we see manufacturing jobs constantly moving away, and the news of it being disrupted, moving to cheaper markets. What's the outlook for this? How does manufacturing coexist with new technologies coming in?
So manufacturing is difficult. Let's just be honest. Engineering is difficult. Anytime you build a physical object, it takes skill. And even if you push that skill to a robot eventually for mass production, It's taken skill to design in the first place. So as you move jobs around the world just for cheaper production, that will continue. And you'll move to India, you'll move to Vietnam, it will just happen. Lower cost of widget, that will happen. But someone, somewhere, is going to have the concept, the idea, the prototyping. All of that will still exist. So manufacturing will continue to be distributed with just mass market production in those factories. But the bit that's missing, and I think the bit that's missing for startups, to your point about how do we scale, how do we enable factories on demand? So someone that's got a great idea that requires some skills, something to be actually physically built and then put into the market, that's really, really hard. And that doesn't exist yet as an industry anywhere.
Because it's difficult for those industries as well. They can't predict what they're going to be asked to manufacture. They can't predict what materials they're going to have to use. But until we can unlock that, then actually a lot of our innovation is in that software space, in cloud and AI. We're not getting many physical products to market. Not new inventive physical products, because it's difficult. So when we can unlock that, we'll get a really good balance about things that we can use that are tangible and kind of this digital world that we have at the moment. So I don't have an answer. It's just
Not yet,
difficult,
at least.
but I'll think about it today.
Right. Well, Eric, I just want to get your perspective because startups right now, the worry that a lot of it is replicating Me Too products. What are some of the problems that you think startups should look at focusing towards, thus solving some of the problems that we're going to face, as well as enabling startups to also grow? What are some of the areas you think startups should focus on as compared to just replicating existing models and rebranding it in a different way?
I think you need to look at works today and find angles of doing things a little bit differently, a little bit better. Everybody's talking about disruption, which is a great thing, but if you look at real disruption, a lot of things have been done differently, and people think it was disruption. So for us, it has been looking at what was working, what people liked, and how to do it better, more efficiently with the right people and the right technology. So that's, I think, the key to success.
Right. Of course, one of the things about solving tomorrow's problems is public and private sector partnerships, because what we've seen, especially with things like the Smart City initiative, is private sector efficiency companies like yourselves solving public sector constraints, working with mayors in emerging markets to solve urban solutions, sanitation solutions, transportation solutions. So do you think private-public sector partnerships is the way forward to tackle, common problems that we're going to face tomorrow as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because, we are working in the mobility sector, transport sector, and we are too much focused on the vehicle itself, how we can make the vehicle better, convenient, comfortable. But the most important is how we can make the kind of harmonize between the vehicle and the hardware and also the infrastructure. The infrastructure should be managed by the public sector. So now is the time for us to work together with public sector and the private sector to see the solution for the social benefit, right? And not just for the commercial benefit. How we can make the city better for living. That kind of question, still we don't have the solution. We should tackle that kind of problem, work together with the public and private. That's my point. That's why Smart City is a very important concept. How we can find a nice team to work for that. That's a question.
Stephen and Leon?
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a really specific, perhaps, set of principles that I'd apply and then an example. So when I think about the private sector and the public sector working together, first it's where is the shared ground? So what are the objectives that are going to create benefits for both the citizens in that particular area, the company, and the government? And in many cases, it's around employment. And we have an example where we're working in Phoenix, which is our home market for GoDaddy, and there's a railway line that's being extended, a trolley line, into a neighborhood. That's going to cut foot traffic down in that neighborhood for small businesses. So we are coming in with the help of some NGOs and with the government to say, all right, how can we retrain that business? There are many of them on this line. Before the line gets installed, don't wait till there's a crisis. Let's start now and say, okay, is there going to be relocation? Is there digital marketing assistance we can help? How do you take a business that might have been dependent upon physical traffic and move it online? And so I think if you start with some principles of benefit to all, what's the ultimate goal we're trying to achieve, and then start with a very specific problem, you can actually make traction pretty quickly.
Leon, do you want to take a go at this?
No, I totally agree as well. So what is the big problem you're trying to address as well? So you've got to maintain that focus. I mean, in this case, you're talking about transportation, also kind of human movement and connecting people together. So you've really got to distill what is that big problem, and you've got to have a government that, or at least a local government that wants to buy into it. Otherwise, I'm just in a sales cycle.
Well, that's a business perspective. You should get the government perspective on this.
So if you haven't got a forward-thinking partner in this, partnership is a two-way thing. It's not a one-way sell. So there is risk in partnership, there's invention in partnership, there's disruption in partnership. Unless those things are on the table at the start, actually it just becomes a good idea that fizzles out to nothing. So getting that early buying, absolutely key critical to success. And the invention part has to come hand in hand, but it needs to be unified.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time. I think we are out of time, but before I close, starting with Eric and moving this way, what is one of the bigger problems that you see today? What is one of the bigger problems that you see today that you really want to address, and how would you want to go about it? Just in a line.
You need to repeat the question.
What's one of the biggest problems that you see today that you want to tackle, either as a person or a company, over the next couple of years?
Well, I think for us, the biggest problem is growth. We started a year ago. I was on stage actually a year ago. That was the launch of the company. We are now in 37 countries. We have global customers. We have 5,000 photographers on the platform. And it's really managing growth and finding the right people to help us grow globally. That's definitely the biggest challenge for us.
Yeah. When I think about the challenge that I'd like to go tackle, it's how do we take the 500 million people that are going to be joining the workforce over the next 5 years and help them create meaningful work that's also financially rewarding. So how can we help those folks go from no job prospects to joining the workforce in a way that's productive and helps the economy grow?
Yeah.
Mine's slightly different, actually. The problem that I'd like to address is kind of unknown, but it's the ethical and moral boundaries of technology and human, and when they start to interact with each other and we start to make decisions based on maybe someone's got a competitive advantage because they've had some kind of implants, and would I hire that person over the next person? So those future real big ethical questions.
Hiro, final word, race away.
Okay.
Pun intended.
I'm very optimistic guy, so I'm not good at talking about problems. I love to talk about the solutions. So one thing I would like to tell you guys is Mark Andreessen is a famous kind of investor told the software is eating up the world. That's a great word. But if that the software is eating up the world, the hardware can develop the world. So now is time for all of us to think about how we can provide a solution and social benefit by combination of the hardware and software, and also corporation, and also startup, and also public sector. All those kind of cross-industrial approach is one of the common way for the solution. I would say that.
Well, it's almost impossible to tackle all the future problems and find solutions in half an hour, but I think we've done our best. So thanks you to our 4 panelists here. Thank you guys so much, and let's hope for the solutions coming to fruition.
Yes. Let's make it happen.
Thank you very much, Akshobh and each panelist.